I know that I am the last face you want to see if you are out in College Station, Texas, because naturally, I apparently seem to be the biggest Aggie hater, and I have a ton of ammunition to go with today. But instead, I'm going to be nice and tell you why you can make the college football playoff in 2025, along with Alabama, Ole Miss. We're going to be breaking down Kentucky's schedule and talking about the college football playoff, maybe costing you a little bit extra out of your pocket. Welcome on into the Overtime Drive. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson. Jam-packed show, and best of point, we have to stay on topic because we only have an hour to get through this shindig before you're welcomed in by Chris Phillips and Harrison Fan to get you ready for the SEC tournament down in Hoover, Alabama. But real quickly, like the video, hit the ring notification, and of course, subscribe to the channel because we talk college football every single day. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials. Link in the description. Follow Dave at Dave Shumate SEC. Me and Mr. Cole Thompson at SEC Unfiltered. And check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. And as always, we are proudly fueled by our friends over at FANDUEL. Go visit FANDUEL.com/SECU and join today with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Whether you're betting on the Stanley Cup playoffs, the NBA postseason, a regular MLB game, or the tournament down in Hoover, ALA, make sure you go over to FANDUEL.com/SECU and win yourself $250 in bonus bets. Schuster, how the hell are you?
Dude, college baseball, it's a good avenue if you can get into from a betting standpoint. Bear, this is going to sound very ignorant a little bit, but the best phrase I can think of right now, or best term, is I don't think Vegas puts their best odds makers on college baseball, and I think when it does get tournament time, they don't know a whole lot about it because they're just starting. So I think you can take advantage of some of these conference tournaments, NCAA tournaments at some point. Bear, before we get into football, are you for in the baseball tournament all 16 teams making it?
No, I'm for just having 14. Because again, it was 12, but it was the 14-team conference, wasn't it? So again, just the last two should not be allowed to get in. Your season should be automatically over.
Yeah, I'd be fine with it. Let's be honest. I'd be fine if they cut it to 12.
Yeah, I mean, well, who would be the first two out? It'd be Texas A&M, and who would be the other one?
Who is the Texas A&M and Oklahoma? Would it be Kentucky?
It'd either be Kentucky or Mississippi State. Those would be the last two.
Yeah, Kentucky because State owns the tiebreaker. You're right. So Kentucky and A&M
so it's
wouldn't make it.
But like at the same time, I'm all for seeing a team go on the run because that's what I love about the NCAA tournament for basketball, whether it be in Tampa or in Nashville or Atlanta. I like the fact that there's always one team that we see make it to that quarterfinal round. And so who is that team going to be? Will it be Kentucky? Will it be Mississippi State? I mean, I was going to ask you before we move on over to one of the main subjects of the night show, who are you picking as the upset team this year in this run?
In the SEC tournament?
Yeah.
Team that could get on a run at plays tomorrow. I don't know if it's really an upset, but I'll go Florida because they've been playing as well as anybody in the country. Again, I don't even think that's an upset, but that's who – I mean, think about it, Bear. Me and Chris were talking about it when he was driving to Hoover today. I like that it's single elimination now, so you're not wasting a bunch of time there. But if you play tomorrow, the chances of you getting to Sunday are like slim to none. I mean, LSU doesn't play till Friday night.
Right.
Like if you're top 4 seed that got a double bye, you almost keep your same rotation. And it's just kind of –
See, for me, I think that LSU, depending on how the rest of the tournament goes, they may rest some arms just to get ready for being a top 8 seed. So they're set in. I like Mississippi State. There's nothing about that.
Barry, you one of those guys from an arm standpoint? Because, again, you're a Major League Baseball guy. You follow the Astros and cover them. Are you one of those it's like if you sit your guy, your ace, and let's say he pitched last Thursday since they moved the last series off. So you didn't pitch him this week. The next time he pitches, and let's say this, you're a 1 seed, a high 1 seed. You're not pitching him against the 4 seed because you want to save him for potentially the winner's bracket. That dude almost goes, 15 days without a start? Do you think that's good or bad in your opinion?
I actually don't start my second guy because I feel like that my second guy is going to be the guy that I open up the tournament with. That to me feels a little bit more likely. And maybe I don't play my number 1 and I play my ace with the opening night game because, again, LSU, depending on where they rank in things and depending on what their matchup is, they may feel content running out their number 2 and then saying, if we win, okay. If we win, we're in a good spot. But if we lose, okay, we can go to our number 3 guy. But what about our ace who's been sitting for nearly 2 weeks? So I personally say whoever I think is going to start my tournament, and I know I'm the host team, and I know that I have a little bit of allegiance, I'm not playing him in this series, especially if I'm a top 4 seed. So if I'm Texas, I'm not playing my main guy. If I'm LSU, I'm not playing my main guy.
If I'm Texas against either Alabama, Tennessee, or Missouri, I'm throwing a midweek guy.
I'm throwing a midweek
Texas
guy.
doesn't have to anything to gain.
No, that's the thing is that Texas at this point, they're guaranteed to host a regional. They're guaranteed to be a top 8 seed, in my opinion. So it's like they have nothing to gain. Kentucky, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, for that matter, they have a lot to gain in terms of seeding. I think that Florida has a lot to gain. Yeah. So it's like there's some teams out there that maybe they don't have to worry about playing their frontline starter, like say on Wednesday. But if you get to say Friday night, you want to guarantee that you're one of the 16 host cities, then you are playing your ace that night. So it's like every situation is different. If I'm guaranteed, though, a top 8 seed, I'm not pitching the guy that I am starting my series off with, which is probably going to be my ace depending on what the matchup is. Or maybe I do just go into a midweek starter. All right, we've been rambling about college baseball. Before we move on, who do you have winning the tournament? Just get our picks in.
We'll go Arkansas over Vandy.
I'm going to go on a surprise here. I will say LSU over – would they play Vandy in the semis or would they play Vandy in the finals?
The finals.
Okay, then LSU over Vandy. I something about Vandy I think says that they're going to be able to go on a run this year. I actually won't be shocked if Vandy ends up winning the whole damn thing. I really won't, the way they've been playing as of late. All right, we wasted enough time talking college baseball. Let's talk college football. There has been news about the sport that we love and the sport that we care about, the sport that we should be running as college football fans, not Dave and I, just us in general, because if we know what's absolutely mentioned and what's supposed to happen on the Saturdays. Well, John Skipper, former president of ESPN, somebody that knows television ratings and television networks, was on the Pablo Torre podcast and talked about the future of college football. And he brought up some things about what could change with this sport, especially with an expanded playoff. And he mentioned, well, who knows? Maybe eventually we'll see college football games on pay-per-view. And to that moment, that's when I felt the pit of my stomach drop to a deeper part of despair, to where I know that long pathway up to the mountaintop, Dave, it's going to be a tall climb because I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I don't think it's going to be in the works right now. But the one thing that I do know is that this is college football and it's television networks. And what do we know about college football and television networks working together? They don't care about the fans. They don't care about the product. What they care about is getting enough eyeballs on the screen to put themselves in a position to where they will bring in a profit. And so eventually, I think this could happen. Not right now, not with a 16-team playoff, but what could happen is very soon we have that conversation. Well, maybe we'll just try one of the conference tournament games on there, one of the conference championships. Maybe we'll try, we're going to have this new play-in tournament feel where the 3 versus the 6 seed. Maybe then we'll try those on pay-per-view. And if it really sells well, then we can start building a baseline. I don't think it happens today. I don't think it happens tomorrow. But I know who's running the show. And that's the part that is really souring when it comes to this even becoming a conversation starter.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't think it's in the near future, but I do think at some point it is going to be pay-per-view. And when I think of pay-per-view, Barry, you're probably old enough to remember. You remember ESPN Game Plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, like every team had to be on pay-per-view, I think once or twice a year a little bit. So it's like, but like, you just paid it. Usually a terrible game, a terrible non-conference Louisiana Monroe type of game. No offense to Louisiana Monroe or Mercer. But like those were the days I remember. But I'm in the future. I'm with you. I think at some point it's going to happen. I don't think it'll be not in the next 5-10 years, but at some point I think that's where a lot of television's going. We're going to be paying a lot of a la carte. And you're right, from a football perspective, it is unfortunate because, again, a lot of people won't be tuning in to those games. Again, because college football, I think, is a little bit like, dude, if you're charging me a pay-per-view for a regular season game, like the regular season a little bit. Again, I don't get as upset about the playoffs as some people because I think, I don't know, maybe I just saw it coming and I accepted it. Doesn't mean I like it, but we've accepted it. But, like, the season is watered down a little bit now. There's a lot of 2-3 potential get out of jail free cards with losses. So it's like if Alabama loses to Georgia and Sanford this year, the season's not over. So like people won't be as enticed to go, man, gotta go watch Bama, Georgia Volume 1. Hell, I may see it 3 times this year in Atlanta in the SEC Championship. So it's like, I don't know. It's a little different than like WrestleMania to me, which I'm more willing to take because that's like a show a little bit.
That's the thing that I also like. I've heard people say, well, WrestleMania is on pay-per-view. UFC's on pay-per-view. Boxing's on pay-per-view. Those are things that, we've seen work and there's been immense success with. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I completely understand that. But let me phrase it to you this way. college football is a 12-game period at the minimum. For some teams, it's 13 games, and for others, it's 16, 17 games. It is a chapter log. You want to know what a fight is, Dave? It's a one-man event. You go home, the other person goes home, somebody's a winner, somebody's a loser, and then you just call it a day. That's what a fight is. It's a one-time event. With college football, it's a chapter book, and you got to get to the final page. And the final page could come in Atlanta, it could come in Miami, it could come in a must-win showdown in the Iron Bowl at Jordan-Hare Stadium for an Auburn Tigers team that failed to meet expectations. And just to guarantee that they stay alive for one bowl game, they have to win against Alabama. That's college football. And the other thing about college football is that you can't tell the entirety of the tale by having a few chapters for $19.95 on our television screens and the other ones be free. Because then what you're doing is you're already watering down the fan base that has been watered down by constant change in the last several years, like conference realignment, like the expanded college football playoff, like NIL and the transfer portal killing the sport. And you're also taking away the productivity and the meaningness of what is the regular season. Because I can promise you this, I am a college football stan, and I will pay an egregious and abhorrent amount of money to guarantee that I am paying attention to this game full on.
But most people are casual fans and wouldn't.
But that's the point, is that I'm built differently. I'm like a Ford truck, built different. That's what my brain is.
When it comes to CFB, baby.
But there's not many of me out there. There's a handful. Dave, even as much as I think that you're in the same boat as me, I think I'm a little bit different than you and Chris from this standpoint. Because if we talk about ESPN going to like getting that $29.99 package with the bundle deal for Hulu or for Disney Plus, I want to watch those games of Conference USA on a Saturday afternoon. I want to watch FCS football. Like, I may have to pay that premium price because if those games entice me. Like, if they take away action on a Tuesday night and they make that a pay-per-view event, there's a part of me that says it's a waste of money, but damn it, I got to watch Toledo versus Miami of Ohio. Like, that's where my brain goes. And I know that's not for everybody. But what you're really doing by trying to expand the horizons of the sport is you're killing it with its fan base.
I mean, I think ESPN Plus for the most part, do a lot of people even watch college football on there? Maybe there's a couple games you would have on there. But I'm saying for the most part, I think of that. I think of like the non-conference basketball and baseball, or even conference baseball series.
I mean, there's several, like, so for the FCS playoffs, that's a way that you watch.
FCS playoffs would be on there, yeah.
Like, that's how I usually get into it.
On. Yeah, I would pay and watch that. So I would say I'm the same as you from that perspective. But when I think of ESPN Plus, I think of that like my non-conference basketball.
But I'll tell you who's not built like us. Timmy out in Lexington, Kentucky.
No, most people are casual fans, and it's not a bad. I mean, it's not bad. Again, people have life. They have wives. They have kids. Like, I get it. And I think in today's college football world, the transfer portal, I don't even want to say NIL. It's the transfer portal. People don't feel like there's an allegiance, loyalty. I think that's making fans back off a little bit more and become more casual, even towards their own teams at times.
It's more than that as well, because I think that you realize the people who are in charge of college football could give a care about college football, could care less about the sport. They could. Because if a lot of people are looking at how does this benefit my pocket and benefit my overall ratings, then it does the actual sport. And I say that to be nice because of the college football playoff is expanding. It's going to 16 teams. We know that. We knew that was going to be a thing. But the automatic bids. Now, I'm not going to say for 1 second that the SEC and the Big Ten are not going to have the most representation. Because most years, based off of recruiting, based off of transfer portals, and based off of allocation of money, those will be the programs that have the highest representation simply based off on-field play. But you're guaranteeing those teams and those conferences for automatic spots because they bring in the most revenue. So what you're doing is you're taking away from a team that may have a once-in-a-generation type of roster out in the Big 12, or Wake Forest goes on a 10-2 run. But if they finish in third place in the ACC, they may or may not have an opportunity to win a national title. And that's the unjust part, because that is a money grab. And that's what we're seeing with a lot of these television ratings. And unfortunately, that's where John Skipper is right. You know, people who are in charge right now are paying attention only to that phrase. What do the numbers say? What does the profit say? If they correlate with each other, they meet in the middle, and it ends up being a benefit for us, who cares about the college football fan? Because we took away a conference already. We took away multiple other sports already from different schools. We've already made sure that we've built our own super conferences to where we're eventually just going to combine them and create a super league. We've already laid down the foundation. Why don't we just finish the job?
Yeah, it's a business. It's a straight business. It always has been. It's just gotten to be a bigger business now with television. That's really the big difference.
I would love to hear your comments. If you go ahead and fire it off in the comment section, like, review, hit subscribe, make sure that you're following us on all social media. But now we're done complaining about what's wrong with college football, and instead go talk about what could be right in college football. More representation in the 12-team college football playoff this year with 3 teams that didn't make it last season: Alabama, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss. 2 teams that many people were screaming for, hey, at 9-3, they should be in over SMU. So why don't we start off with the team that probably had the highest honor because they were the first one out. That would be the Alabama Crimson Tide. Kalen DeBoer comes in year 1, significant win over Georgia in Bryant-Denny Stadium. And then, of course, the back-to-back losses to both Tennessee and not back-to-back, but still, you get the idea. Losses in the state of that's losses in the state of Tennessee to Vanderbilt and then Tennessee. Get back on your winning ways before losing to an Oklahoma team that had no passing attack, and then closing out your year with an underwhelming performance in the Citrus Bowl against Michigan. So, Dave, this is a very, very good Alabama roster. They bring in Ryan Grubb. Have a good transfer portal class. Top 5 recruiting class. They retain a lot of talent. They kind of are built to actually be better than what they were last season. So in your opinion, for Alabama to go to the college football playoff in 2025, what has to happen?
So why can they?
Why can they?
I mean, I agree with Kirby Smart, what he said probably about 2 or 3 months ago. I mean, you're talking about a favorite in the SEC this year, like who will be receiving votes at SEC Media Days this year. I mean, everybody's got holes this year. Starting with Alabama at the quarterback spot. But I think outside of that, Bama's got probably the most returning of anyone else in the league. I mean, yeah, they're thin at certain spots, just like everybody else is. But I think their top 3 receivers are legit dudes. I think from everything you're hearing from Wilkin Formby, it sounds like he's very much improved. I know he looked terrible in the South Florida game last year, but you hear he's doing a lot better. If Cam Dewberry can adjust over to the left guard spot, they'll be fine. I think they got 2 solid backs. Daniel Hill can come on, but I think Jam Miller, Richard Young are your 2 guys. Then I think on defense, again, depth will be an issue, but I think they have some real dudes. LT Overton, Tim Keenan come back, James Smith. If Quay Rusall can come back healthy, play a little better. I mean, again, inside backer was a concern, but again, you got Justin Jefferson and Deontay Lawson coming back. I think your secondary is good. How deep is it? I don't know, but you have some guys, Damani Jackson, Xavier Brown, Bray Hubbard on the back end, gets Keon Sabb back from the foot injury. They have probably a lot more questions answered than on most teams outside the quarterback spot. But again, it's the most important position in all of sports. If you're not executing in an explosive level at this point in offensive football, now you can't go back and play like 2020 Texas A&M. It's just too much to ask. You got to be somewhat explosive now. Again, if the quarterback spot doesn't work out, we're talking a little game. But I think surrounding why they have a lot of answers to the test already, Bear, heading into 2025. It's just they haven't answered the essay part yet, and that's the quarterback position.
If you gave me one reason they could, I actually like their depth. I like it from top to bottom. And one of the biggest things about when you talk in the SEC, what does your depth look like? Their secondary is probably going to be one of the strongest in the SEC. You talk to people around the building with how they've transitioned, like even a Dijon Lee that came on this past year, and he's only been there for 15 practices. Hey, he would start at Kentucky. He would start at Mississippi State tomorrow. He's already better than some seniors that have been in systems for several years. That's how highly they regard him. And that's not including guys that we've already seen on campus. Keon Sabb being one. Xavier Brown being one. You lose Jalen Mbakwe to the offensive side, but you return different pieces that you brought in this past offseason. Bray Hubbard's one. You have Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. being one. There are guys who eventually are going to have to leave this team, not because of they aren't good enough to start at Alabama, but rather because there just are too many players ahead of them on the depth chart. And it feels like in the olden days when we were talking about Nick Saban, he would just load up on defensive players at multiple positions and say, you know what, best man for the job. And if you leave, I'm sorry, but you probably would have started any other year. That's how I feel about that secondary. I have questions when it comes to the front seven. I do. But I love LT Overton. I think him coming back for another year is massive for his production. I think it's massive for the pass rush of Alabama. And I love Kelby Collins coming on in from Florida. I feel like that for a Kane Womack system, the way that you want to run it, that fits so much better than what we saw
He's
last
key to
year.
them this year, man. If they can get a lot out of him, that'd be big.
I think he could be great. You already mentioned the offense when it comes to the wide receivers. I'm very high on some of the guys they have waiting in the wings. Like, I think a healthy Cole Adams on most teams in the SEC would be a wide receiver number 3. And certainly I think he could be a wide receiver number 2 at any given point. What about Jaden Mbakwe? You have him transfer into the offensive side of the football. What would he be as impactful if you didn't land Isaiah Horton or if Jeremy Bernard went off to the NFL? Offensive line's going to be very key, but they kind of got rid of the one problem on the right side with Elijah Pritchett. They feel really good about Cam Dewberry. You have Parker Brailsford coming back for another year. Caden Proctor may be the most experienced offensive lineman on this group, but he also may be the best offensive lineman when it comes to production. And I like what you bring in at quarterback because of what you also brought in with the Robin, which is Ryan Grubb. And when I say Robin or sidekick, that's not a negative. Sometimes you have to work as a duo to get the job done. And the best work that we have seen from Kalen DeBoer throughout his entirety of coaching has been when he has Grubb on the sidelines, because it allows him to focus in on so many other things. So there's so many questions when you have talking about depth in college football. I don't worry about it as much with Alabama. Now, there's certainly some positions you're not going to get the same amount of production from another wide receiver if you were to lose a Ryan Williams, but you combine 2 guys, you might be able to pick up the slack. You lose a Zebian Brown, you feel pretty good about what you have in the secondary. So there's minor holes to when you say to yourself, hey, Alabama, they lost a guy. You're kind of like, okay, and not okay, but. That's where I'm at when it comes to Alabama right now. Now, I'll tell you what the reason is for me and why I don't think they can. They become too one-dimensional on offense. That's what it comes down to me. I think this defense could be top 10 in college football this year. I'm fully bought in.
Yeah, I think it could be top 5 if they get a few guys step up and stay healthy.
If you can stay healthy, I believe this could be the best defense in the SEC. And I believe it could be absolutely the best defense we have seen in Alabama since probably 2020, if not even better than that defense. That's how well I appreciate this. But last season, how many times it felt like they just threw away the run game? So much so that one of your better running back prospects decided to transfer to Ann Arbor. He's starting for Michigan this year. Do you feel good about your secondary punch? And one of the few things that is such an underlying trait when it comes to the status of a Kalen DeBoer-led team, they know how to run the football. I mean, even Dylan Johnson, who wasn't a signature name in the Pac-12, just a solid, sturdy running back that you can lean on. He ended up rushing for over 1,100 yards en route to a national championship appearance. You have to be able to run the football. So if you become too one-dimensional on offense and you put too much pressure on a young quarterback, especially early on in the season, like, hey, we're down by 10 going into the third quarter against Florida State, or, hey, we need a score on this drive right here to make it a matchup in Athens, I think that becomes a problem. And I think it's something that is going to be very hard to recoup from, and it's going to make defensive coordinators kind of game plan better for you. Take away the passing attack, get rid of Ryan Williams, take Isaiah Horton out, only have one receiving threat that maybe isn't the number one option, and know they can't run the football, and they're living in 2nd and 8, and they're living in 3rd and 6, it becomes concerning. And that's something that I just need to see with my own 2 eyes. Because they ranked like 85th in rushing last year. That's a problem at times when you aren't able to consistently put up 100 yards.
I mean, Jalen Milroe was the run game.
That's the thing, is that you had a quarterback, and you were too codependent on your quarterback to where you don't have that guy anymore in your backfield.
I mean, I think the easy answer here, the 2 + 2 = 4, is the quarterback spot. Is why not? Like, if that just doesn't pan out, then yeah, the rest of it in today's college football doesn't really matter from a championship standpoint. Because then you're probably going to a youth and Keelan Russell, who can get the job done. He's going to take his bumps and bruises as a young buck in this league. It's going to be inevitable. So that would be the obvious one. And then I think the one, just without taking the low-hanging fruit, would be the production on the edge. Outside of LT Overton, like I mentioned when you said Kelby Collins, if they could get something, if they could have a big year from him, like a winnable plus type of year that you see from a transfer every year who goes to another school and just needs a new start, that would be massive. Quay Rusall can stay healthy, get his production up. Yanze Pierre's another kid you're looking at. That depth a little bit outside of Overton's a little bit of concern. And obviously if they get just not even from a progressing as a player standpoint, you get some injuries there. you could be in trouble, just like everybody has depth issues now. So I think obviously the quarterback spot, that's going to make or break them this year, I think. Staying healthy, and then that depth on the edge would concern me a little bit. Someone's got to step up there for them to ultimately win the SEC this year. So I'm going to go depth on the edge.
Rusev's got to have a good year. Overton's got to have a good year. Collins got to have a good year. I'll even throw in and say Justin Jefferson's got to perform a little bit better. I think Nikhai Hill-Green coming on in from Colorado's got to be at least a little bit of a.
They got. I mean, back in December as the season was ending, they were going to be bad on the interior, and they got. I mean, you kept two. I mean, you hate to say this, but the injury to Deontay Lawson was kind of a blessing. You got you back, like him back. Justin Jefferson may have left, and then like you mentioned. You get the Hill-Green kid from Colorado who's a productive player. You got a little depth there that you didn't think you could. You'd have been really thin.
That to me is a big reason why I really do like Alabama's front seven, because it's unproven in certain spots, but there is depth. I think the depth at linebacker could be a major difference, especially with Deontay Lawson coming off the injury, and then you get back Justin Jefferson. Like Lawson has a potential to be a top 15 linebacker in college football, certainly a top 5 linebacker in the SEC. But I do wonder about him coming off of injury. Plus, you have Justin Jefferson. What's his role going to be with this unit? So I think getting a guy like Hill-Green as your backup, it's a really smart move that could allow you to feel pretty comfortable if you had to play either role right now.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Ole Miss, the other team that was in the running to go to the college football playoff. And in fact, last year, it kind of felt like this was their year because they were all in. You look at the names they brought in via the portal, the names they retained, having a veteran quarterback with Jackson Dart, having a veteran play caller with Lane Kiffin, having a solid run game, making up with what you brought in with weaponry and wide receivers and whatnot. And then you proceed to lose in week 5 for your first SEC game. And then you proceed to lose to LSU, despite leading the entire game except for the final play, and then losing in the swamp to a Florida team where you were in control, and Jackson Dart actually could have been in New York City for a Heisman Trophy presentation if you take out that final 15 minutes. And I've already said this a billion times. I'll say it one more just for the folks out in Oxford. Ole Miss gets to the playoff. I feel like they're the most dangerous team that nobody would want to face. That's how much I like their roster. But now they have to replace a ton of production, including a quarterback in Austin Simmons, multiple wide receivers, more defensive line depth, really, really big names to replace in the defensive line. Question of the secondary, but it is Lane Kiffin. It is Ole Miss. They seem to overexceed expectations in years where people doubt them. So, Dave, what's the reason they can't make the college football playoff?
Well, they can. I mean, I'm going to say because of like continuity on the staff. I mean, again, as much turnover transition as they've had on the personnel side, on the roster. I mean, you mentioned it, Bear. I mean, they do have obviously their head coach back, Lane Kiffin, Charlie Weiss back. You had Pete Golden back, and you even have the special teams guy, Jake Schoonover, back. Like, I mean, it doesn't happen a lot in the sport now. I think maybe that could be a little bit of a scale, like give or take from the transition from the personnel. And again, I know you had all these guys back, but at the same time, I mean, I know you had a lot of these coaches there last year too with a lot more experience. But again, I'm just trying to look at it from that side of things because, again, they did lose a lot. I mean, Austin Simmons is obviously a natural, easy answer. He's going to have to play really well for them to make it. And I think the schedule, again, is beneficial. But I'm looking at that continuity on that staff. That's key to have 3 primary coordinators, your 4 primary coaches in that building all coming back again. Everybody's kind of getting used to that system. So that can help a lot of these newcomers, the new transfer portal players and the freshmen coming in and transition a little easier.
I won't go with the low-hanging fruit, which is the schedule. Hey, look at what you play. Look at who you play. Look at when you play them. That's guaranteed to, if everything clicks, 10-2. 10-2 gets you the college football playoff. But I got 2 answers. Number 1 is Austin Simmons. We only saw him for a quick cup of coffee against Georgia. He was in control. The game did not look overpowering to him. It didn't feel like that he was out of place. It didn't look like he was a backup. It felt like that there were some limitations to what the play calling was, but his on-field demeanor was fine. And he built a really good relationship with Caden Lee, who's going to be his wide receiver number 1 this year. So that feels really good. Number 2, he's also didn't go to baseball this past season. He was fully invested in football. So we had an entire offseason to learn the playbook, build that rapport with a bunch of young wide receivers and a bunch of newcomers. So I think that's already just a huge win and advantage. And then number 2, Lane Kiffin has this knack about just finding guys in the portal that usually we'd hear about like, okay, cool, they would get looked at by Wake Forest, or they would get looked at by Oklahoma State or Utah, or hey, Texas Tech did them a little bit of change. That's cool. And they go to Oxford and they're far better than advertised. Like, I was speaking to some people when Trey Harris came to town in 2023. And they said Trey was going to be a really solid receiver, but they liked some of the in-house products. They really, really liked Jordan Watkins when he came in from Louisville. And Trey Harris in game 1 broke the school record for receiving yards and receiving touchdowns in a single game. And I get it. It was against Mercer. But my point is that Lane has this knack of just going and landing guys that you think, hey, really nice, solid contributor at one school, elite at this school. And they have it once again. I don't know who it's going to be. It may be Drajon Stribling, who really does feel like, in my opinion, probably the highest upside of the wide receivers. But watch it be Harrison Wallace coming on in from Penn State. Drew Allen in the play calling sucked, and now he ends up being really good.
Caden Lee's a good player. I could see him come on for him.
But it could be Caden Lee, but he's not a transfer. I'm just using transfers.
You're using transfer. I thought you were talking about anybody.
Like Luke Haas was a top-tier recruit coming out of high school, and he didn't live up to expectations at Arkansas. And if you told me, oh, the dude's going to win the John Mackey Award, I'd say, where did he go to school next? Oh, he went to Lane Kiffin down in Oxford. Okay.
He can stay healthy. He can be productive.
Like that's what it is. And there's certainly some defensive players that, they were bad fits in one location, and they're really good fits for Pete Golding. So it's so hard for me to doubt Lane Kiffin at this point, that he didn't do his homework and his due diligence and look through all of this ample tape to say, this kid's a really good fit that can become an all-SEC player. This kid's a really good fit that can be a day one starter for us. This kid's a really good fit that can put us in a position to where we need a third down crucial drive, and they're going to be good. So it's like, at this moment, why am I doubting Lane Kiffin? Why is the world doubting Lane Kiffin? Because it also feels like in the years that we say, hey, 8 wins is a really good year, 9 wins, really productive, they end up setting school records. I mean, like, I remember in 2023, 9-3 was the expectation. They went 11-2 and they beat Penn State in the Peach Bowl. The most wins in program history in a single season. Like, he does this all the time. And so this just feels like the epitome of Lane Kiffin. No expectations, a bunch of transfers that were good names but weren't elite names. New quarterback coming on in. Yeah, 8-4 will sell for. And they march on and they beat LSU and they beat Oklahoma and they kick the shit out of South Carolina. And they end up going to finishing 10-2 and they're in the college football playoff. That's peak Lane Kiffin at its finest.
Yeah, I mean, you looking at their depth chart and stuff too. I think one of the more underrated position groups maybe in the league, if Luke Haas can stay healthy, is their tight end room. I mean, dude, Daquan Wright was better than Priestcorn was. At the end of the year, he was a very underrated transfer from Virginia Tech. I mean, that tight end room, if Haas can stay healthy, that'll be big for them this year. You like that tight end room right there a lot, just looking at it.
What's your reason they can't make the playoff?
I mean, it's obviously the natural production, but I'm really going to look at one specific position. It's going to be in the secondary. Yeah. I mean, you lost a ton, and they didn't even get those numbers like healthy in the spring. I mean, they were just bringing. You still see them. They still brought some guys in even after the spring, where you're like, this guy's going to have to contribute. Like, maybe I think Pete Golden. I think the reset in Oxford for him coming over from Tuscaloosa was good. It helped him refine his skills. Lane doesn't mess with him like Nick did. You can tell he's in his environment. He's comfortable. I think he will get the most out of this secondary. But again, it's the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. At some point, you can only do so much. So again, I could see people being on Pete's ass a little bit this year. Because Trey Amos, big time pickup they got. They lose Isaiah Hamilton. That was the kid from Houston, if I remember right, who came over. Yeah, I mean, you lost significant. John Saunders is gone. Trey Washington is gone. I mean, who steps up in that back end there? I mean, that's kind of my concern right there. I mean, the Ricky Fletcher, who was banged up a lot from South Alabama last year. I like his measurables. I like his range if he can stay healthy. Not a Sage Ryan fan. LSU let him walk and upgraded. Jalen Braxton, I've heard, question a little competitive toughness. They're just very thin back there. So that would be my concern. And again, they lost production in a lot of other places.
I'll go with the very, very low-hanging fruit, and it's the exact same reason why I say Lane Kiffin in a year where you don't expect him to do anything, it ends up coming back to bite him in the ass. Lane makes a bad call. It ends up being an total implosion in one of these games that you got to win. Because if we've seen it. We've seen it on so many occasions here, and that's the frustrating part. You're up. You're down by what? You're down. You were tied, weren't you, when you played in Athens last year or 2 years ago? You were tied 7-7
in the first quarter. Yeah.
Yeah, and then immediately, okay, let's go to work. The offense falls apart. The play calling becomes askew, and it's like a 52-17 beatdown. Like, okay, well, you got to play again in Athens this year. Do you have maybe, I don't know, Logan Diggs get off 80-yard scamper, opening drive, next drive? You watch as Austin Simmons connects with Caden Lee, and you get a field goal out of it. And it's like, okay, it's 10-7. And then somehow the defense gives up a big-time play to Zachariah Branch, and your play calling goes off the rails. And now it becomes a 48-17 finish, and you only score 7 more points. Like, that is typical Lane. And that's something that has been a part of his mantra for a while. And it's not a negative because I think Lane absolutely loves being viewed as the underdog, and he's great at that role. And that's one of the things that stands out so much when I talk about Ole Miss. In a year where the expectations are very minimal, or at least at the standard of what we've seen in recent memory, it's like, oh, he's going to absolutely crush it. It's like what we say with Shane Beamer. He's going to hit the over every single year, but it's better because I feel like that Ole Miss is a more prepared team right now than South Carolina at times, but they just shoot themselves in the foot at the most ill-advised times. And what if it's not in conference, Dave? Like what if it's actually a Washington State loss? Like, that's the game they lose, or they lose to John Summerall and Tulane. And it's like, now we have 3 teams that are all 10-2, and we can throw them in the playoff. But Ole Miss has the weakest resume. Ole Miss has the worst loss out of all of them. And Ole Miss also doesn't have enough to guarantee themselves in the play. Like, it's little things like that I think could really affect it. I also think not having
you don't trust Lane.
That's part of it. I also agree with you, though. The secondary is probably the biggest low-hanging fruit because there's a lot of newness there, and it's...
Dude, you could go the quarterback spot. I mean, I know I'm a fan of Austin Simmons, too, but again, Jackson Dart's arguably the 3rd best quarterback in
Ole Miss
history.
And
so, I mean,
certainly, in my opinion, the best quarterback for most of the year in the SEC. Not all the time, but for consistency standards, he was probably the best quarterback in the SEC last year.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a secondary, and you can make a case at a lot of different spots.
Like, review, hit subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on social media. That we keep up with everything that we're doing here on the channel, including the baseball show that we have literally coming up in 20 minutes, which is why we got to continue to run through this show. That way we're able to get on off for Chris and Harrison to come on in. Texas A&M. Oh, boy. What do you want to talk about with the Aggies? I will be nice. I will be very nice.
Bears about to put on his Liberty Flames shirt on right now.
You went 8-5 last year. In my opinion, really solid season for year 1 of a new coach coming into a program that needed a culture change.
Just faltered late.
It needed a culture change. And you start off really hot. It's unfortunately a lot like how Dave says. It's not just about the X's and O's. It's also about the Jimmys and Joes. You didn't have the right talent to close out the season on the high note. Terrible secondary play at times, insufficient when it came to tackling, your inability to rush the quarterback. But I do actually believe that Texas A&M did a good job of replenishing certain areas of weakness in the transfer portal. Wide receiver-wise, massive upgrade. If Mario Craver can stay out of trouble, he's a very solid complementary piece to Casey Concepcion, who I believe could be the best receiver in the SEC on any given day. I like what you have in terms of personnel on the offense. I like that you have an identity on the offense. So I'll go first real fast, Dave. The thing that I think that can make Texas A&M a playoff team, they know what is their offense. They know what is their identity. And so when you already have that part of the equation figured out, and you just go, we have 3 different types of running backs. They struggle with stopping the run at the middle. Okay, let's go Amari Daniels. They struggle with runs on the outside. Let's go with Le'Veon Moss. They struggle with running backs that have pure straight line speed. Let's go with Reuben Owens. And that's your 1-2-3 combination. All of them would start for any team in the SEC. That automatically makes you that much more competitive and in that much better of a situation to where, hey, pick your poison on which running back you want to have to deal with all day. They have 4 starting offensive linemen returning. That's another massive win. And they have Adam Cushing back as your offensive line coach and Tommy Moffitt as your strength and conditioning coordinator. So both those are Cushing turned Graham Barton into an all ACC player, an eventual first-round pick. You don't think he can do that with Trey Zune or Trey Fothery or what you have with some other names on the offensive line like Mark Naboo? Like they have those guys that they can say, hey, any one of them could start in the NFL tomorrow if they're in our system. I also think that when you look at it from the standpoint of simply which quarterback best worked for Colin Klein, they picked Marcel Reed because he was the best fit for the offense that they want to run. Now, I'm not saying that he is an elite passer. I'm not saying that he doesn't have traits that are going to hinder some of the success for Texas A&M. But from a standpoint of scheme fit with a coordinator and quarterback, that was better than Connor Wigman. And so I'm believing that Marcel Reed, having an entire offseason knowing he's QB1, having an entire year to kind of learn the ins and outs of how to run an SEC offense, getting better weaponry, having a more stable run game, having a good offensive line, add all of it together. That's why you can believe in Texas A&M that if they have a consistent passing attack, whether it be with a tight end or whether it be with Concepcion or whether it be with one of the freshmen that comes on in, and then you turn to the run game and you say, hey, we're going to be an offense that is going to beat you in so many ways, but more importantly, we're going to own the time of possession. We're going to milk this clock. We're going to put ourselves in a position to where we're walking away with points, even if it's just a field goal. And there we have it. Our defense just needs to get one stop, and we're winning this game by 7. They can do that. They can be a great team. And it's very hard for me to doubt Mike Elko because I do believe Mike Elko is the right culture fit that's needed out in College Station. So that's why I believe in Texas A&M. They know what their offense is.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. It's going to be the same size as the offensive line. You get the 4 starters back. All the great teams have great offensive lines. You go back and look at any national champion, SEC champion, they're all pretty good up front. You said Trey Zune. I brought up Demetrius Crownover, Marjay Adams-Reed, who we signed when I was at Kansas, transferred there to Dallas kid. So they're going to be fine up there. You brought up Coach Cushing, so I'm going to leave it at that. That'll be why I would feel good about A&M this year. And they're polished in a spot, even have Fatherly, as you mentioned, his depth right now, who's an all-SEC kid as a freshman. Like, they have quality depth at the offensive line spot, and they get continuity at that offensive line coach spot. I think they take a big step year or two. Again, it all comes down to the quarterback position for me there.
So you're saying for the reason they can't is because of quarterback?
Yeah, I didn't hear good things about him in the spring from somebody who was there during like a pro day and watched them practice. He went over on one time. I'm going to have to see it to believe it. I may be wrong, and I'll eat crow if it happens. Again, if that guy can't get it done this year with the weapons and the offensive line in front of him, that would be concerning. So definitely, Marcel Reed, I know that, again, that's the low-hanging fruit. If you made me ask something outside of the low-hanging fruit with Marcel Reed, I'm going to go with I'm going to go a little bit on the back end of the defense. Maybe Julian Humphrey can step up for him again. But to your point, Bear, I think they could operate a little bit on offense from like hey, ground and pound, keep hitting third and medium. Let's just be real efficient on third down. But I don't know if they're going to be good enough. They're going to be solid on defense. Mike Elko never has a bad defense. I just think there's some holes in all 3 levels there, maybe outside of the second level because they're really good there. But like, I think there's some concerns there where like they could play some games. I think they definitely will have to play some games in the 30s. Can your offense be explosive enough? I think you do have the weapons on the outside. I think you got the offensive line. You mentioned the backs, Bear. I just don't know if you have the signal caller. I'm going to have to see it to believe it. That's why that Notre Dame game to me on the road going to be at least – I don't know if it will be as good of a defense as last year, but it's going to be a good defense under Marcus Freeman. That's the big test for me for Marcel Reed, man. It just comes down to him.
Texas A&M struggled rushing the quarterback last year. Texas A&M was middle of the pack in sacks, tackles for losses, pressure rates among SEC teams. I do not feel like they got better in that position at all. Now, I love Cassius Howell. And if you tell me that Cassius Howell ends up having a Nick Squirton type of success early on, and then eventually he becomes one of the best pass rushers in the SEC, I'm cool with that. I absolutely believe he can. I have no doubt that if you told me at the end of the year he has a Kyle Kennard type of resurgence and just takes over games, that's really cool. Kyle Kennard had a running mate by the name of Dylan Stewart. He had a great rapport in the middle of the interior defensive line with TJ Sanders, with Tonka Hemingway. I don't trust that right now. I don't trust that at all right now. Because if I know that you brought in TJ Searcy, and I know that you brought in Dayan Hayes, I know that you like some younger players like Dalen Evans and DJ Hicks, and you also have Albert Regis back for another year. Like, I get that. I understand that you have pieces. But it was a defensive line that was underwhelming for a defensive-minded coach. And I don't feel like you address that area at all. And I'll give you credit. I love the linebacking room too. I think that you have the best linebacker tandem right now going into the season when it comes to your inside backers with Scooby Williams, who really is a good fit for the way he plays with Mike Elko's system. And Torian York's a stud. Like Torian York's awesome. And I'm not ready to give up on Des Ricks. And I think that you have a really good number one cornerback in Will Lee. And I like what you have in Bryce Anderson. And I think that Dalton Brooks is a fine
Get something out of Julian Humphrey.
But like, you do have questions, and you look back at that USC game and the explosiveness of the
Dude, I can't get the Auburn game out of my head.
The Auburn game is another one. And I get it. Those are wide receivers. But there's two games I'm going to bring up for you right now. The Florida game and the Notre Dame game. And the reason I mentioned those two, the Notre Dame game, Dave, they're not going to be the best offensive line in college football this year, but they will be top 10. And there will be offensive lines as good as Notre Dame on your schedule that you will have to go up against. So can you rush a young quarterback like CJ Carr into making mistakes and putting the ball in harm's way? Can you address that area to be able to make sure that when you play against a Florida or on the road against a Missouri, or when you have to face off against a South Carolina, or when you have to take on, Texas on the road, you're built for that moment because they're going to have lines and they're going to have protection. And then the Florida game, Florida, in my opinion, has the most underappreciated wide receiver room in college football because a lot of it is unknown. But I'll tell you what I've heard coming out of camp with every single day from like Nashawn Montgomery, who may end up having like 15 catches for 185 yards. They love that room. They love it. They love Dallas Wilson. They think that he is going to be a stud. They love Aiden Mizell as a vertical threat. They think that Trey Wilson, fully healthy, now playing in the slot, it's going to do wonders for them. And if you can't slow that down, then that's already a problem for when you have to face off against Texas. What if Nick Harbor ends up having a breakout year? What happens if you see somebody from Missouri end up playing well? That's a concern. But I still say the front seven is a lot more important, especially with the pass rush. You didn't feel like you upgraded enough. And that may be a reason why you're looking at, again, 8-4, when your offense is really, really potent and it just is not able to get the job done.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you.
The win total right now is at what, Dave? 7?
For A&M?
For A&M, 7, 8.
FanDuel win totals.
I believe it's at 8 right now.
Let's look it up.
I probably shouldn't have put you on the spot.
No, you're good. I got it right here. I usually know this. They change here at 7.5 right now on FanDuel.
Yeah, see, and the reason I did that was because if I wanted to do it as a shameless plug to mention our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel right now is offering $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel, the sportsbook app, is here to make every moment count. The app is safe, secure, super easy to use. Already have an online account? Go to FanDuel.com/SECU for profit boost tokens, new features like a parlay hub, build your own same game parlay, or choose from the popular SGP to make your own for your parlay hub. Don't miss out on the action at FanDuel.com/SECU and get in the action with offers you don't want to miss. Disclaimer: must be 21 and present in select states or 18 and present in DC. For his online real wager money, only $5 deposit is required. Bonus issue with non-withdrawable bonus bets will expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under the agreement of the Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelpline.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY in New York. Now that we got that out of the way, Dave, final order of business. I want to talk about one other thing, but we'll save that for the Thursday show along with the mailbag. So get your questions in.
Get them in, baby.
Unfiltered at Mr. Cole Thompson, at Dave Shumate SEC. We're continuing our series breaking down every single schedule for teams in the SEC. And we move on over to Kentucky. Start off the year with Toledo, then welcoming in Ole Miss for the rematch of Week 5, Eastern Michigan in Week 3. Then you where you got to travel back-to-back weekends to South Carolina and Georgia. Another bye week on October 11th. And then you run through the murderer's row of anyone. I think nobody wants to play this. Texas, Tennessee, at Auburn, Florida, Tennessee Tech, at Vanderbilt. And you close out the year with Louisville. Dave, the most winnable game in conference for Kentucky is who?
God, it's going to be the most negative I've been on anybody's schedule. So the most winnable conference game, huh, Bear?
Yeah.
That's what you're asking?
Yes.
Woo! Man, what landmine do you want to step on here?
I was saying, who do you want to piss
off? What's your favorite
off?
landmine here?
Who do you want to piss off?
I mean, maybe they get lucky and Vanderbilt beat to hell at the end of the year or something. Now I'm going to go at Vanderbilt. I don't feel good about that. I'm going to go at Vanderbilt.
I'm going to go at Tennessee. I'm going to go Tennessee at home. And the reason I say that, I say that because it just feels like they're going to get an upset at some point. And Tennessee last year losing on the road at Arkansas, I just can't get that out of my brain right now. I can't get that out of my brain. It's like, okay, you bring in a new quarterback in Joey Aguilar. It's still early enough in the season to where, okay, well, it's October 28th. But at that point, if maybe you move off of Aguilar and you're going over to Merklinger, you're kind of just waving the white flag on 2025 as an overall season. You're just trying to figure out who's a part of your long-term roster. Maybe the buy-in's not really there anymore. And so, like, there's just a part of me that says it has to be a home game. And it has to be against somebody who could be more.
Yeah, I mean, they never beat Tennessee, but they're due, too. You can make the case, too.
That's the thing. It just feels like it could happen.
Because Tennessee fans are listening like, holy hell. If we lose.
Because, like, Florida, I don't believe is going to do it. But I also could say Florida. Like, I could say, like, it feels like one of them.
You didn't mention Vandy. I think Vandy's the clear cut at least number 2. I can get the creative Tennessee game.
Can I just
never beat Tennessee, but it's due. Maybe Tennessee's struggling, but you're right. But I think Vanderbilt's got to be the second.
Can I just say it's Vanderbilt number 1, but I want to be different, and so I went with Tennessee because I just want to be
Vandy fans would argue, be like, "Hey, what about at Auburn?"
But I don't see them losing at Auburn. If it was at home, I would pick Auburn. I would absolutely pick Auburn.
Yeah.
The guaranteed loss.
I mean, I'm going to go at Georgia after the trip to Columbia. I mean, the back-to-back road games, the SEC is hard as hell already for the good teams. And I've kind of stated a million times on the show, I'm not that high on Kentucky going into the year. So I'm going to go at Georgia.
I'm going to go Ole Miss just because of how much that game is going to mean to Lane Kiffin. And it just feels like that's one of those matchups where he has been salivating knowing that Mark Stoops kept him out of the playoff. Kept this team, and again, it was his play calling. It was inadequate.
Is there a world where you could see that game being a little tricky for Ole Miss?
What?
Is there a world where you could see that game being a little closer than we think probably right now? Maybe
there's
new roster for Ole Miss, first road game.
There is, but there's also a part of me that says Lane Kiffin has been telling his players, I don't care how much you score in game 1. I care how much you score when we go up to Lexington. Like, there's
and I don't mean to rain on the big blue parade right here. But, folks, it's not out of the realm. I'm telling you that the Cats could roll into their SEC opener 0-1. The Toledo Rockets got an SEC. They're trying to get back-to-back wins. SEC.
Okay, at this point, if Jason Candle does not get a head coaching job at a P4 program after beating 2 SEC teams, either he just wants to stay with Toledo or something is wrong in college football. Because you don't beat 2 SEC teams with Toledo and then not get a Power 4 job.
Yeah, I don't care how bad those SEC teams are. Yeah, you're right.
Must-win games.
Ooh, that's a good one. You say games, plural?
Games.
All right, so 3.
Okay, I will give you an out. You can pick one non-con game.
So I can pick one non-con, one conference?
Yeah.
All right, pick non-con, dude, it's got to be Toledo, dude. You get off to an 0-1 start right there. And that game does scare me a little bit if I'm them. So I'm going to go Toledo non-conference. Must-win conference game. If South Carolina was at home, I would go there. But you got to think motivation too, Bear. I mean, it's like, all right, yeah, Ole Miss, they don't have to win that. At South Carolina, it's going to be tough. They don't have to win that. At Georgia, no one expects to win that. You get to Texas. But then at that point, dude, you're 0-4 in league play. People start to check out a little bit, and they give a damn factor in there. So it's like you can go deep in the year, but at that – dude, I think they got to get one of these first 4 conference games, as hard as hell as that's going to be. I mean, they're not beating Georgia. They're not beating Texas for sure. I don't think they go on the road and beat South Carolina. Dude, I don't want to say their first 2. They got to start 2-0. That's unrealistic because I don't think they're going to be very good. Man, that's a hard question. That final must-win. You go, Bear. I'm coming back to mine.
I think Tennessee Tech is the must-win game. I can stomach, depending on what I see from Toledo.
Toledo loss.
I'm
I
not
just think
saying
it's a bad tone setter to the year.
I'm not saying that's good, but I'm saying if you lose to Tennessee Tech, I don't know if there's a way that you could save Mark Stoops' job. Like, I genuinely don't. There's not a world to where I see him surviving with a loss like that. Vanderbilt's won because I think Vanderbilt this year, we got to give credit for what Clark Lee did last season. And I think that absolutely he has turned Vanderbilt into a respectable program in the SEC. If anything, there'll be a hard-fought program in the SEC, but it is a winnable game. It's a very, very winnable game. So I agree with you on that. And I don't know. Part of me just says do it with Louisville. And the reason I say, oh wait, but I can't choose a non-con game. It's crap.
Yeah, you already picked
conference game. I'll go Ole Miss just because, hey, it's a new roster. It's a brand new quarterback. It's a bunch of new pieces coming on in.
Game to you, conference what?
I'm saying it's the must-win conference.
Yeah,
that in Vanderbilt, because if Vanderbilt could be a weaker team once again with all the pieces that they did lose, and they could have been a one-year wonder, and we could just be talking about Diego Pavia as that flash in the pan that doesn't exceed or come back for the encore and have a great year. And then Ole Miss is just a bunch of new pieces early on in the season. Like, you took Georgia that won the SEC to nearly overtime, and you found a way to mess it up because if you chose to trust your defense instead of go for it on fourth down.
Hico Bear, good question for you right here. I think we always underestimate when we're making our season predictions, like from a health perspective and I think from like a momentum.
Sure.
What does, in your opinion, for Kentucky to have a 6-win year, what's their record got to be heading into their first bye, or their only bye, I should say?
No, they have 2.
Am I missing the other one? Can I not see it?
They're trying to need Georgia.
Oh, yeah. All right. Sorry. After their second bye, what's the record got to be?
It sounds bad, but they got to be 4-1. They got to be
3-2. They could be fine. If they get Toledo, Eastern Michigan, and one of Ole Miss, South Carolina. Like, if they were 3-2 and their only loss was to 2 of Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Georgia, they'd be like. But to your point, what games outside of Tennessee Tech? It's a guarantee at that point. There's 4.
That's the reason I say 4-1.
Vanderbilt would have to be a must-win. I mean, that's a 5th. Then
Auburn.
What game are they getting? Texas at home, Tennessee at home, at Auburn, Florida, or Louisville. I mean, maybe they get one of those, but doubt. You're right. I mean, 4-1, you'd feel really good. But I'm going to go 3-2.
All right, let's stop beating around the bush. What's the ceiling? What's the floor?
The ceiling?
What's the ceiling for Kentucky going into this year?
Hold on, pull the schedule back up. 1, 2.
I can tell you what the floor is. I think you know what the floor is.
Yeah, I mean the floor is definitely 2 for me. What are you going floor?
I go 3-9.
See, I could see 2-10, dude, with just Tennessee Tech and Eastern Michigan. I mean, I see a world where Toledo could definitely beat them, and certainly Louisville.
If you told me that it was middle of the season, I could see that kind of upset happening. I think that
that's fair, Bear. I mean, you're right. To point of the season, to open up the year, they'll be as healthy as they've been. You're right. I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It sets up. I mean, because Mississippi State got Toledo what, Bear? Like 4th week?
Week 5, week 4.
You know what it was? It was the week after they went to Arizona State.
Week 3. That was it.
So that was a total trap cross country. You got back at 5 a.m. You're right. Opening up helps for sure.
Yeah, week 1. All right. So I say 3-9. You say 2-10. What's the floor? I mean, yeah, what's the ceiling?
Woo! We're being optimistic here, Bear. All right, I'm going to give them 4 9.
Be as optimistic as you can.
Optimistic but realistic. 4. If they have a big year, they got to go 4-0 and non-con. And then, all right, there's another one. Let's see. And then, I think ceiling 7-5.
I got 6-6.
I was almost there too.
Here's the reason why. It comes down to one main thing. I will already tell you, I'm ranking Zach Calzada as the worst quarterback in the SEC because I've seen him. I've seen him up close and in person. I've seen what he's done at a program.
Cutter Boley, you like? I mean, I just don't know enough about.
I don't think that they're going to give it to Cutter Boley, and I like some of the wide receivers they brought in. I really do like the defense. I love the South Dakota kid. I think that he is going to be phenomenal for their front 7. And I hope that they can retain him for another year. I do, because if I think that this is going to be that 1 year where Kentucky, with the schedule, with how much turnover they had, with losing Barry and Brown and Dane Key and what they lost at the running back position.
Barry, tell me if I'm wrong too. Just has this weird taste of like Stoops is 1 foot out the door. I'm not saying he is. Right. Just has that taste. It's the least amount of momentum this program's had. I'm going to finish Kentucky this way. I think I said ceiling 7-5, floor 2-10. I think they're going to be bad. I don't know how bad of a football team.
I would like to, the way that I will describe Kentucky at the end of the year. Here's what I want to know. Are they competitive? That's what I want to see. Because there's a difference about going 4-8 and having a couple of crappy losses that just don't end well because of talent. And then there's 4-8 where we're getting blown out by 40.
I mean, to be honest, too, Mayor, Kentucky fans aren't going to take too kindly if they roll into November 29th. And even if it's at Louisville and, like you said, you've quit and you get the brakes beat off of you.
Are you playing against Louisville down by 7 and still making it a game?
Yeah.
Because I think that this is a year where you look at the quarterback position, you look at the offensive line, bringing all newcomers or guys you're bringing on in from smaller schools. You look at the defense, what you lost, and it's also the buy-in from Mark Stoops. Add that all together. Is that enough? But if he's 4-8 and the team is playing meaningful football, and the team is giving a shit, and it's actually going out there and trying to close out, and they just lose, it's completely different than you're in the third quarter and you're saying, all right, Cutter Bully, you have to go win now because if Zach can't keep getting hit. Like, that's the difference. And it felt that way last year with Kentucky at times.
Dude, that Calzada, before we get out of here, dude, like, that was the last quarterback we signed when I was at Texas A&M, Jimbo's first true quarterback he signed. Dude, that guy has played in college football forever. And if people do not remember, that was the quarterback in 2021 at Texas A&M that beat Alabama. I mean, he has been in the sport since Vietnam.
Nick Saban lost to an assistant was because of Zach Calzada.
Zach Calzada, and the week before he was horrendous against Mississippi State.
Like, review, hit subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on all the social channels. Dave and I will be back on Thursday because we have another live show. And what we're going to do is, again, the mailbag. And we have some questions. I'll tell you what the question was. And you can go ahead and give me it in the comment section who you think. Who is this year's Miami? Who is this year's Miami in the SEC? Is there a Miami in the SEC? Don't worry. You don't have to go stay on this live stream. But what you can do is you can go on over to the other live stream that's starting in just a few minutes with Harrison Fant and Chris Phillips talking all things SEC football. But that's baseball. But have a good start to your week. We'll see you on Thursday. Get your question in the mailbag. For all of us here at SEC Unfiltered, he's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson. Like, review, hit subscribe. And as always, you only live life once. You might as well live it to the fullest. Bye.